Welcome to Think Christ. I'm so glad you're here to join me as we journey through. We're going to journey. Huh? Nope, I'm not going to do that at all. Welcome to Think Christ, where we ask, why do I believe what I believe? And today we're going to talk about why Christianity is not the white man's religion. A lot of people look like me. I got friends, I got family have turned away from Christianity because they believe this myth that the white man created it and it was forced upon us at this transatlantic slave trade as we get to Americas. And why would we believe what our captors kind of created or invented? So we're going to debunk all that because Christianity is actually a global religion, but we're going to focus in on Africa and where we come from. So stay tuned. It is the story of the children of Abraham in Africa, Joseph in Africa, Moses in Africa, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus in Africa, and shortly thereafter, Mark and Perpetua and Athanasius and Augustine in Africa. We see the Africans were at the forefront of the birth of Christianity. Christian scholarship was born in the leading academic center of the ancient world, Alexandria. Alexandria is in Africa. Alexandria, Egypt, which is in Africa. At the very forefront of Christianity, we see Africans present. Literally, when Jesus is being crucified and the Roman centurions force him to carry the crossbeam, who do they ask? Or who do they force, really? Simon of Cyrene. Mark 15:21. Now, Simon of Cyrene, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way from the country, and the soldiers forced him to carry the cross of Jesus. This is all of where Jesus walked, where he walked, preached, slept. And this is Cyrene. It's in northern Africa. And right off the get-go, so this is Mark. This is in the Bible itself. Simon of Cyrene. And we clearly know that Mark knows Alexander and Rufus. So from the get-go, in the first book that is written, according to scholars, most scholarship, is the book of Mark. That's the earliest manuscript. That's the earliest gospel that we have. And Mark knows Alexander and Rufus and their father helped Jesus carry the cross to his death. And they're from Africa from the very get-go. So from the very outset, in the earliest book, we see three Africans right there. Acts 13:1. So Acts is after Jesus dies, after the gospel. So Jesus dies, his ascension, and then we go into the book of Acts, the second installment from Luke. So Acts 13:1. Now there was at Antioch, in the church that was there, prophets and teachers, Barnabas and Simeon, who was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, who had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch and Saul. Now, if you look too quickly, you would have been like, oh, cuz wildin', like how you, no, that's clearly name looks familiar because in Latin, it just simply means black. That's all it means. It means black. Yes, throughout time changed and they did their worst to that word. But it just means black in Latin. Simon the Black, as it were, or Black Simon. Like we would probably today we would say, oh yeah, Black Simon over there. You know, black, a little black. I don't know how that worked, but Simeon the Black. Lucius of Cyrene. Cyrene, we just went over. Okay, that's also in Africa. So 4 Africans, a brother named Black, right out the gate. So again, after the Gospels, then you have Acts. This is the next book after the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, then it's Acts. Acts 8:27. So he started out and on his way, he met an Ethiopian eunuch, a court official in charge of the entire treasury of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians. He had gone to Jerusalem to worship, and on his returns was sitting in his chariot reading Isaiah the prophet. So Ethiopian eunuch, they're like, okay, I know Ethiopia. That's okay. I'll give you that one. That's in Africa. Pump your brakes. So Ethiopia or Ethiopias, a literal Greek translation is burnt face or burn face. So at the time, the country as we know as Ethiopia was Aksum, the Kingdom of Aksum. And we're going to talk about that actually a little later on in the video. So again, Ethiopias was describing how someone looked and they gave a name to it. Just like we say black people. We do the same thing today. We say black people, but it's like, okay, what country are they from? Where? So we kind of do the same thing. So yeah, same thing with Ethiopian. Okay, so let's go back. Acts 8:27. So he started out, and on his way, he met an Ethiopian eunuch, an important official in charge of the treasury of the Kandake, which means Queen of the Ethiopians. This man had gone to Jerusalem to worship. So if you remember what we read before, it said he was in charge of the treasury of Candace. And in this one, he's in charge of the Kandake. Well, what's happening? Candace isn't a proper name. Like, it's not a first name. It is a Latin translation of Kandake. So that's why some translations have Kandake, some have Candace. One and the same. They're the same thing. Kandake is a title. Like king is a title. You know, king, whoever, fill in the blank. So it is queen of the Ethiopians. So Kandake just means queen. Queen of the Ethiopians, or the burnt face ones, as we talked about before. Ethiopias just means burn face or burnt face. So it's talking about an appearance. So we would probably say something like Queen of the Blacks. You know, that would be funny. I don't know. But Queen of the burnt face ones. Well, she was actually queen or Kandake over Cush or Nubia. So Cush, aka Nubia. So it's Candace, aka Kandake. One and the same thing. Just the title meaning queen. Of Cush, aka Nubia. One and the same thing. Well, Cush, aka Nubia, is modern day Sudan. And we know Sudanese people and what they look like. Some of the darkest people on earth is the Sudanese people. So the Kandake, the queen, was the queen of Cush, which is modern day Sudan. And this court official traveled all the way to Jerusalem to worship Yahweh. Like with caravan and all that. Like he had all that. He had money. They had money. I mean, they had money. Okay, cool. So it's a few Africans that's named, few dark people named in the Bible after Jesus. Okay, cool. But what about anything outside of scripture? I mean, you know, how do we know it didn't change, or, you know, Rome didn't take over, or whatever people believe? Well, the earliest manuscript that we have in existence that you can go see for yourself today, this is the actual image of it, is P52. So what even is that? What is a manuscript? So you think manuscript, you think manacle or manicure, your hands, handwritten documents. It wasn't the printing press at the time. So to copy anything down, you got to write it. So those are called manuscripts. So P52 is papyri. It was written on papyri. It's the closest thing to paper that we have, or that they have. And that's what it was written on. And it was the 52nd one that was found. So papyri 52, it came from Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. That's where it's from. That's where we found it. In Africa, in Egypt. So to think that, oh, well, you know, scriptures was taken and they were all burnt up. There's so many theories that don't make sense. But earliest one we got. So let's talk about the influential Africans that made an impact on Christianity before the United States even existed. So you can't say, oh, well, again, this is the white man's religion, right? So what about these people? Iphigenia of Ethiopia. She lived in the 1st century, and it's believed that she was converted by Matthew himself. You know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, that Matthew, like Matthew. The Roman martyrology reads today, in Ethiopia, Saint Iphigenia, virgin, who being baptized and consecrated to God by the blessed apostle Saint Matthew, ended her holy life in peace. Ammonius Saccas, he lived in the 2nd century. He was an influential philosopher of Alexandria, often regarded as the founder of Neoplatonism, though his teachings were primarily oral and not directly preserved in written form. Tertullian, also in the 2nd century. He was an early Christian apologist and theologian of Carthage, modern-day Tunisia, a northern African country. He coined the word Trinitas, where we get Trinity. So it wasn't at the Council of Nicaea they made up everything about Jesus. No, that'll be another video. We'll talk about the Council of Nicaea. Interesting, but it's definitely not what y'all think it is. A lot of people think it is, not you, because you're smart. So Perpetua also lived in the 2nd century. She was from Carthage, modern-day Tanzania, where Tertullian is from. She was a martyr, and she died by lions and getting her throat slit. So it wasn't a good time for Christians. So Marcus Minucius Felix, he died around 250 AD, lived in Northern Africa. He authored one of the first Latin apologetics, Octavius, defending Christian doctrine against plagiarism and skepticism. Origen, also in the 2nd century, he was described as the greatest genius the church has ever produced. Cyprian of Carthage, a bishop of Carthage. Cyprian was a prominent early Christian writer who is best known for his writing on church unity and discipline. Gaius Marius Victorinus, a notable Roman rhetorician, philosopher, and Christian theologian of the 4th century, is best known for his conversion to Christianity late in life. Athanasius of Alexandria, my boy, a church father in Egypt and a chief proponent of the Nicene theology against the anti-Nicenes, and defended the idea of Trinitas to describe God's essence. Didymus the Blind, a notable Christian theologian, teacher, and writer of the early church based in Alexandria, Egypt. Despite losing his sight at a young age, likely due to illness, Didymus became an influential scholar and head of the Catalogical School of Alexandria. Tychonius of Carthage, he was a prominent North African theologian and a biblical scholar. He was best known for his unique interpretation of Christian eschatology and his contributions to biblical hermeneutics. Augustine of Hippo. Maybe they called him that because his name, Aurelius Augustus Hipponenus, is hard to say. He was the bishop of Hippo in Numidia, which is modern day northeast Algeria. King Azana of Aksum. So we talked about how we were going to get to Aksum and how we had the Ethiopian eunuch, and we think Ethiopia the country. Well, Aksum was actually the area that we know as Ethiopia now. So between modern day Ethiopia and Eritrea is where Aksum was. Other thing about Aksum, it is the 2nd oldest Christian nation on planet Earth. The 2nd oldest ever, to a point where the coins that were minted look one way when he believed in Zeus, King Azana, and it changed when he started believing in Christ. Shenote of Astrite. Shenote was a prolific writer producing sermons, letters, and polemical texts in Coptic. Bishop Synesius of Cyrene. Y'all remember Cyrene? He was a renowned philosopher, writer, and later as a bishop in the early church. Cyril of Alexandria. He was a little rougher. He was a little rougher. He was described as utterly unscrupulous, overbearing, turbulent, and greedy for power. But he did defend the faith in Alexandria, Egypt. Caleb, he was canonized by the Ethiopian church and was the first Ethiopian to be recognized by the Greek and Roman Catholic churches as a saint. So if you're keeping notes, you're probably noticing Christianity is prominent in the northern and eastern rim around Africa. A lot of activity there. Alexandria, the Library of Alexandria is where it's at. It's popping. Everybody there, I don't even know if they still say popping. I don't know if they still say popping or not. But everybody there, like, Tanzania, Ethiopia, it's Christianity. It's a hub. But then you have the death of Muhammad that happens, and 1 year later in 633, the Arab conquest starts. So you have Arabs coming in from the east, and then Damascus falls in 636 AD. Then Jerusalem falls in 637 AD. By 642, both Syria and Egypt were entirely under Arab control. Arabs began raiding westward into Libya by 645 AD and easily conquered Cyrene. They also conquered the Persian Empire and much of the Roman Empire. The conquest in North Africa accumulated in the destruction of Carthage, which we had a few bishops there, in 698 AD. So now the Arab conquest happens, and from the north, and then you start to see Christianity kind of float down to the southwestern side of Africa. Between 1137 and 1270, the Zagwe dynasty in Ethiopia, a family of Christian kings, revived Christian art, literature, and church expansion. The founder of the Zagwe dynasty, also known as Marara or Takla Hamanot, he overthrew his father-in-law to establish a new dynasty. The most famous Zagwe king, who reigned for 40 years, spanning from the 12th century to 13th century, he is credited for constructing the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. So Gregorius of Sagla, so he's one of the first, or let me say earliest writers that we have from sub-Saharan Africa. So now you get into the other side of Africa, and he's one of the earliest writers that we have. So you have in the Senegalese area, Ibn al-Dari. It is not in our land, which is the property of the Muslims. Rather, it is in the land of the property of the Christians of Takwar. Zara Yaqub. His reign is often considered the golden age of the Ethiopian Empire. In the 1500s, you have the Kingdom of the Congo, and the King Ja'ao, was the first king to be baptized and converted the country to Christianity. And then you have Benedict the Moor, who was called Ethiopias in Niger for his skin complexion. And then we know Moor, like you heard of Moors. So basically one of the first taken into slavery in Europe due to his skin complexion. So all throughout Christian history, you have in Africa, Africans who are influential and they're making a stamp on Christianity that we see today. The truth of the matter is, finding blacks in the Bible isn't the hard thing. If you want a real academic pursuit, find some white folk. Dr. Allen Wild for that one. So we have Benedict the Moor is the last person that we have. He's in the 1500s. The United States doesn't become a nation until the 1700s. But we do have the transatlantic slave trade.
In August 1619, Virginia colonist and pioneering tobacco planter John Rolfe noted the arrival of a significant group of settlers to his fledgling colony. In a letter to the treasurer of the Virginia Company back in London, Rolfe described how the White Lion, its supplies nearly exhausted, docked at Point Comfort, the Jamestown colony's main port. According to Rolfe, they had not brought anything but 20 and odd Negroes, a cargo that the colony's governor and leading planters bought at the best and easiest rate they could. In dire need of fresh labor, early Virginia colonists eagerly grabbed up able-bodied laborers of whatever race to tend the tobacco crops that were rapidly becoming the colony's main cash crop. The 20 and odd Negroes were made slaves by virtue of their capture in West Central African wars.
Now you have the White Lion that has a ship with 20 odd Negroes on it, 20 or so Negroes on it. They just looking for labor and they become the first slaves. Well, now you have the Bishop of Angola who responds. Angola in Africa. The Bishop of Angola, outraged by this result, complained that 4,000 baptized Christians were among the captives of the campaign. The bishop was hostile to the campaign, complaining that capturing innumerable innocent people not only goes against the law of God and nature, but against the express instructions of your majesty. It was like 1619. We heard of that date and it has to do with slavery. Well, a writing that we have talks about 20 or so odd Negroes that get captured on this ship, the White Lion. When they get to America, it's like, well, shoot, we just need anybody we can get. And then you have like whiteness being created and all that kind of stuff. But the significant part in Christianity is, what was the whole question? Is Christianity the white man's religion? Well, from the very beginning of slavery, you have a bishop of Angola in Africa complaining about the captives that they took to the Americas that were baptized, that were Christian. So it's from the very outset. So not only from the very outset of Jesus, but from the very outset of the United States of America, you have black folks and people of color and dark people and brown people believing in Christ. And there's a lot of terms, actually. So you don't see Africa in the Bible, but you see the description or the color being described. What we do see is Ham. So that's when we think, oh, the curse of Ham, which is not the curse of Ham. Read it. It's curse be to Canaan, not Ham, first of all. But why do people even say that, oh, black people are cursed because of Ham? Well, because Ham means hot or heat or black. So that's where that idea comes from. Incorrect idea, but that's where the idea comes from. Cush means black. Kedar means dark. Also the grandson of Abel. And Niger means black. And that's a Latin word. In the Songs of Solomon 1:5, I am very dark but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. So overall, what do we have? We have the oldest manuscripts are from Africa. Dark people are described at the birth of Christianity, and Africans at the very birth of Christianity. The second oldest Christian nation was African. The first non-Jewish Christian was African. So to say it's the white man's religion, no. So just stop. Just stop doing that. Okay? Well, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. This actually took a lot. This was a lot of work for me, actually. I'm gonna keep going. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna keep going. This was a lot of work, but nah, it's for people to have knowledge. Like, people turn away from the faith because of a belief that's not even a thing. Like, it's not a thing. So at least you have the information. So you can't use that as an excuse if you just don't want to be a Christian or you don't want to believe. That's on you, but you can't let oh, it's the white man's religion be a crutch or a hindrance or a stumbling block when it's just not true. So let it be for the reason that you don't, you either reject it for whatever reason, but this is not one of them. Love y'all. Y'all tune into the next one. We did it. Quit. Quit. Little Black Simeon. Little Simeon. Little Black. Hey, okay. Hey, okay. Hey, okay. I think we're done.